and I know where we have a problem. We might have discussed elaborately on the preventing of entry through some measures like chemical, through physical barriers, but have we addressed containment? How comes every time we have Newcastle in one section of the country, it has to actually become contagious and go all the way to 3-4 counties? How comes whenever we have coccidiosis in one farm, you can be very sure, if only you knew the neighbors, you would visit them prior and sell them the drugs earlier. Because we know, if we have coccidiosis at his farm, we are definitely going to get coccidiosis at her farm. The question is, what are we around containment? Containment. Yes, the farmer has the disease, but how do we ensure that disease does not move from that farm into the next farm? That is part of biosecurity. Biosecurity requires adoption of a set of attitude and behaviors by people to reduce the risk in all activities involving poultry production and marketing. Poultry production and marketing. Because when you talk about biosecurity, we are just ensuring that the farmer understands biosecurity within a certain perimeter, which is actually where they operate. The same farmer is actually going into the market to collect feeds, to collect drugs from your store where other farmers are coming in. And these farmers are coming in without disease at their farm and going back to their farm with a disease, which is actually in the incubation phase. That is what we have to address. When you go to the market, how do you handle yourself to ensure that you do not bring this disease back to the farm? How many of us as practitioners have gone to a farm and realized that we might be dealing with a Newcastle case, we might be dealing with a Gumboro case, addressed everything, left the farm, and went straight home to disinfect and did not visit another farm? How many of us have done that? And you had a call from another farm. As practitioners, we need to discuss our role in disease spread. We need to discuss our role in containment of disease, because we are actually serving as vectors, as professionals, because you get into one farm, they have coccidiosis. After you finalize on treatment, after you finalize on your advice, what do? On your way out, you say, I have another farm here. Let me call them, let me pass by their farm and see how they are doing. And we are the first ones to start telling the farmer, you know your neighbor has this and this problem. I've just come from treating a Newcastle case. I've just come from treating a Gumboro case. I've just come from addressing a coccidiosis case. But by the time you are discussing this, you are already in the poultry house of this new farmer. What is happening? You are spreading the disease. And that is why we must address the issue of containment. And we must be very conscious about containment of disease. Otherwise, we are going to have these rampant cases all over each and every day, unless we are able to say, do not go there, do not come out of there. The two must go in tandem with each other. No getting in, no getting out once it is already in. Biosecurity should focus on preventing entry and containing disease agents from a production site. Keep potentially infected animals and contaminated objects away from healthy poultry. Quarantine, ensuring that you reduce the spread. We need to talk to our farmers and ensure that they understand any day, every day. They look at the chicken and they see one dull chicken, they must be able to separate that one chicken from the rest and put it away, observe it, and start the treatment for all of them. But even before they start the treatment, even before they start giving the drugs or asking what is wrong, they must have first separated the susceptible bird from the rest, because you are preventing spread. You are preventing the severity of that disease in that farm. So biosecurity has two key points to a successful biosecurity program. One, prevent entry through physical barriers. We keep telling the farmers that their farm must be enclosed. Their farm must be having a fence, a physical fence around it, so that we don't have every other bird getting in. We don't have every other person just walking through the farm, because that is the agents of diseases. So physical barriers are very important. Then you need chemical barriers. You must have a foot bath, you must have a foot dip, you must be able to have these chemicals in your farm, the disinfectants, and you must be able to know how efficiently to use them. You must also know when to change them. Some farmers are buying these products and they are putting it in the foot bath, but they are only changing when you visit. You need to tell them, every 14 days, you must change this product in this foot bath. Every 14 days, you must switch from this product to this product. Once in a while, you must tell them, you can't keep using the same disinfectant. You need to change the molecule and use another one to ensure that there is no tolerance and to ensure that there is efficient 99.99% control of diseases. Containment is about preventing the spread of sicknesses. We are dealing with broiler farmers. They have 2, 3, 4, 5 houses. Sinukweli. They have put some day-old chicks here. They still have some 2-week-old birds there, and they have 4-week-old birds there. It is the toughest job you can do, because I can tell you, the day-old chicks are very naive. They are very susceptible. We talked about them yesterday. Their immunity is very low. They are just trying to actually have organ development. And at that time, they are very susceptible to any disease. Anything that is going to happen there, they are going to be affected. So how do you control this farmer moving from the 4-week-old birds, which actually have good immunity, and coming into the day-old chicks? Disease containment, ensuring there is no spread. It is very important to talk to your farmers about this. I have a farmer in Thika. This farmer is a broiler farmer, very passionate. And they keep 1,000 birds every week because they don't want to lose their market. They also sell the birds in Thika town. This farmer, because you have to expand your business, sometimes they also sell eggs. So this farmer has 4 poultry houses in their own home. And in each house, this farmer has made sure that because of biosecurity, they have a foot dip, and he has made sure that the person who is actually in house 1 is not the same person in house 2. Isn't that not a good biosecurity? But these farmers' birds keep dying. And when we look at them, it's always coccidiosis. And whenever there's coccidiosis in house 1, there's coccidiosis in house 2, in house 3, and in house 4, in that order. And this farmer was very frustrated. And he was telling us, I've done everything the professionals were telling me, but this problem is still here. They had a pharmacy at their home, whereby we sell to them all the drugs. This one is not working, this one is working, this one we are trying. And the farmer was very frustrated. And we wanted to know what is happening. He had fired almost 200 men, hiring, the same problem is not disappearing. And then now, it's very important to hang out with your clients. Most of us don't want to hang out with our clients because there's so much information they share when they are at ease as compared to when you are questioning them. Before I close the story of this farmer, I think when we were in campus, we used to go for something called ambulatory. And somebody told us during ambulatory practice, a farmer had called the school and said he wanted somebody to go and help their cow give birth. And so when the guys who were doing ambulatory that day went to assist the cow give birth, they asked the farmer, did you touch the cow? The farmer said, no. The last time you guys were here told me anytime there's a problem, I just call the school and you guys come and help me. So they organized themselves, everybody assisted, and they pulled the calf out, and the calf came with a rope tied around one of the legs. And so the farmer realized that the rope had actually cut out when they were trying to pull the calf with his farm manager. So he realized that and did not wait to be asked, why is there a rope tied around? And he came and he said, and you know this ndama, this cow, during the last days, it was eating everything. And you can ask Mama Kamau, it ate a rope. We were looking for this rope. So, going back to my original story on poultry, while we were discussing with this farmer who was very frustrated, it came across that he told us that he loves his bird passionately, such that he can't go to bed without viewing or seeing his birds in the 4 bandas. And I was very curious. So I told him, can you take me through? And he told me every evening. I close my shop at 7. I get home at around 8. I go to the first house, I check whether the birds are doing well. I move from that house, I go to the next one, I check whether the birds are doing well. I move to the third house, and I always end up on the fourth house. And then I told him, do you have a dust coat, the gumboots? And the farmer was very fast to tell me, everybody has, they all have. The farm workers, everybody uses a different dust coat, everybody has gumboots, biosecurity, iko salama. And I asked him, what about you, who sells eggs in Thika town? And the farmer said, mimi sina shida. Biosecurity. Yeye hana nini? Most of the time we are spending so much time explaining these concepts, and the farmers will call you and they will tell you on the phone, go and train my farm managers, go and train my handyman. But you never take time to train the owners of the farms. And they don't understand what is going on because they are wondering, you have trained these guys, they are supposed to be doing this, but they are not doing it. And they come from Nairobi, they come from Malindi after working, and they get home at night and they get into the poultry houses. They are filled up with germs, they have come from the market. I can tell you, they are the vectors of disease. So talk to the owners of the farms. Because the guys who had been fired from that farm had all been fired for nothing. Tumelewana malida ugonjwa ilikuwa inatoka. You can imagine selling the eggs, bringing them from Uganda, interacting with people who actually had layer birds every single day. And this guy goes home and has to check his poultry houses every single day. And the birds are dying. So ensure that you talk to the owners of those farms and explain to them what is expected of them too. That is just a picture to show you a physical barrier. We want a fence around the farm. It's quite an ordinary one, you can see. And it's actually the second one there. There's a writing on it saying, keep off. It's very important to ensure you have a fenced-off farm. Physical barriers is part of biosecurity. That is just a picture depicting chemical barriers. You can see we have a foot dip on the door on the first picture. Probably there's a disinfectant in there. And you can see there is the second picture. There's somebody who is trying to wash off the car with a disinfectant. And if you are very keen, you can see there's a gate block so that you can get into the production site. Probably the production site is on the other side. It's very important to have a physical barrier and a chemical barrier so that hand in hand they can help to protect the farm and ensure that there is no disease and that the farm is actually in optimal production. Biosecurity, that's another picture portraying containment. We are going to be handling those three things: prevent entry and containment. Containment. Always go to the healthy birds first. Then go to the sick birds. Then exit. Do not go backwards again. Biosecurity is so strict such that the people who are actually taking it seriously do not allow anybody handling the healthy birds and handling the sick birds to be the same person. But sometimes you might be short of labor. So this is how you approach it. Once you realize those birds on that side are actually sick, start with the healthy birds tomorrow. I know we are very curious. Maybe we have given them some medication, and the farmer wants to start with the sick birds so that they can see whether the dawa worked. The problem of going to the sick birds first is they will start bring the sickness to the healthy birds. So explain this to the farmers. The sick birds are actually the last to see. Is it possible? Is it possible? Do you think the farmers will accept this? Yes. I always keep worrying and being curious and asking, why can't we employ the same in human beings? Maybe you have 2 children or 3. When one has the flu, when you wake up in the morning, where do you go first? Yeah? If at home you have a sick person, probably from the flu, why do you always go to the sick person first? Just a practical example. Yes? Concern. Think about it. 1 compared to 4. Where should the concern be? Because maybe you have 3 kids. So there's you, there's the wife or the husband, there's an auntie, then there are 2 kids that are healthy. Who should you be more concerned with? The healthy ones not getting sick. This one is already sick. But you guys have agreed we are going to do this with the chicken. And we have all agreed as scientists that this works for chicken. It also works for any type of livestock and any animal. Why can't the same work for us? I want you to think about it for a minute. Don't you think if you started with the healthy ones first, you would actually ensure there's containment and you do not bring the sickness to the healthy ones? Is it possible for one member of the family to have a flu? Has it ever been possible? Wapate flu, wakohoe, watibike, wakuwe sawa, and everybody is okay. What happens? At home. Yes? It's a cycle. It starts from the most susceptible. After here, the next is a cycle. Sini kweli? So you need to look into it and see which is the best practice. Do you think people who are sick, even at work, should stay at home? I have a colleague who works in South Africa, and the worst thing you can say during a morning meeting when you sneeze is that you have a flu. You're actually supposed to take a 2-week leave, compulsory leave. And I was asking him, is this making sense? And they told me, think about it in terms of productivity. If one member of the staff room, if you are a teacher, comes in with a flu, doesn't it not make more sense for that one teacher to stay away until they are okay than to come in, work at a probably sub-level level, infect the next one, and the next one, and the next one? Because we have all agreed, when the chicken are sick, they are not productive. They are in maintenance, right? And repair. Do you think human beings are productive when they are sick? Can they do exactly as much as they did when they were healthy? So they also have a production line, right? So do you not think that keeping one person away for the sake of 20 would be more productive for the organization than having 2, 3, 4 in incubation or in subclinical sickness? Naona mmeanza kufikiria. Back to chicken. Biosecurity prevents so many diseases. Poultry diseases, avian diseases include viral, bacterial, fungal, and also parasitic. And all these diseases can actually be prevented or reduced in terms of morbidity through biosecurity. So we'll go through a few of the viral, bacterial, fungal diseases that are actually common in poultry, and we'll be able to see whether we can prevent them through biosecurity. One, in terms of viral diseases, we have the avian influenza. I know we always hear about this. It's very common in Nigeria. We have had it in the western sides of Africa, and it's a very fatal disease for chicken. You can actually end up losing the whole flock, 100%. And this disease can actually be spread through biosecurity in the farm and also containment. But the best way to actually prevent this disease is vaccination. Avian encephalomyelitis, I can't overemphasize on this. I touched on it yesterday during chick mortality. It affects chicks 1 to 3 weeks old. It is caused by a virus called Trimovirus A. And their clinical signs include ataxia, tremors. There is very high morbidity and mortality, and it is more severe in the chicks from day 1 to week 3. We have Newcastle, which is also a viral disease. Newcastle is a very dangerous disease in poultry. It affects all the systems. Somebody was asking me, how comes when you have Newcastle disease, there is death within 24 hours? 24 hours, the mortality is almost at 20. By 48 hours, we are talking about 50% mortality. Do you know why? If a farmer asks you, how comes even when we have Gumboro, the incubation period takes some time? Yes, the morbidity is high, but the mortality is not as high. But in Newcastle, the mortality is very sudden. You are just looking at the birds today, they are not looking so well, and in the next hour, 3 hours, the farmer is telling you they have started dying. It's because Newcastle affects multiple systems at once. Newcastle will affect the respiratory system. Newcastle will affect the digestive system. That's why you'll be seeing the greenish diarrhea. Newcastle will affect the nervous system. Newcastle will affect the reproductive system. All the 4 systems at once, which are very crucial to the well-being of the bird. And that is why Newcastle is always severe. And the best practice is 1, vaccination, 2, biosecurity. Newcastle is a big challenge, especially in the village. And probably this is why we are having more and more deaths in the kienyeji birds. I'm thinking in a few years coming, it will not be very easy to get a kienyeji bird, the pure kienyeji breed, true to type. We may realize that trend. I don't know what we are going to do about it. We are the professionals. But the other day we were in Western. And for one reason or the other, because you can always tell from the taste and how the birds are, they are even also starting to get confused between the improved and the kienyeji. Although the improved is a better version for them in terms of productivity, but the kienyeji bird also has a market. And the way things are going, if we do not protect the kienyeji bird from Newcastle and also other diseases, we are actually going to lose it in totality. And it will be overtaken by events. So ensure that the farmer who has 5 kienyeji, 6 kienyeji, 10 kienyeji, you can help them with vaccination. Si kuna ile vaccination ambayo inakaa for 1 year ya kudunga. Mnaijua? Tumeiona? Oh, tunajua hii ya maji tu ya 3 months. There's a vaccine that can be very helpful to the farmers in the villages. And you can always bring them together and vaccinate all the birds together. And you can get your cat and ensure that they actually thrive. So get a hold of these vaccines. Talk to the farmers about it. If you are able to put them in a baraza and have 100 farmers coming together, vaccinate for them, charge them a little fee, but help them to ensure that this disease does not wipe out their flock. Infectious bronchitis, I know you know about this, especially in the layers and the improved kienyeji. The best practice is vaccination. The other next practice is actually biosecurity, to ensure that the infection does not get in. It's a highly contagious viral disease that causes respiratory problems and a drop in egg production. These days, we are having it combined with other vaccines for efficiency and also to enhance efficacy. Infectious bursal disease, this is gumboro, another big problem in the broiler, another big problem in the layer birds. The birds, you'll always see that it's actually caused by infectious bursal disease virus. Some of the clinical signs you'll see is the bird is in a prayer position. Whoever came up with this description, I always wonder whether there was no any other way to describe it. What is a prayer position? Who knows a prayer position? Mnajua prayer position? Eh? Which is the prayer position? Is that how we pray? Ni hivyo venye amesema ni hivyo. That's how it looks. Yes? Si tumeombewa asubuhi. Anyway, the birds are always appear in a prayer position. They are very, very dull. For you to realize gumboro, the birds are very dull. They are immobile. They are just standing there in a prayer position. Whitish, chalkish diarrhea is very common. The vent part is very pasted all over because the whitish diarrhea is actually everywhere around the cloaca, and you can see the bird is really struggling. Why you are having that whitish diarrhea is because the bursa is affected. The nephritis, inflammation of the kidneys, and they are not functioning very well, and the uric acid can actually not be gotten out of the body, and that is why it is coming out and is all over, and that is why the birds will always have that chalkish diarrhea, which is all over the place. Mortality can get up to 70%. Gumboro is a dangerous disease. The worst part about gumboro that most farmers do not understand is once gumboro wipes out maybe 70%, 50% of your birds, what remains becomes a carrier. And you have to talk to the farmers again. Going back to the local farmer. Anywhere you go, I'm sure we know even our grandparents or whoever you know who was kienyeji birds, they always have that cockerel, that rooster, that they never seem to eat. They are willing for you to eat any other bird, but don't touch the rooster. They also have that hen, which always gives birth, but hatches the eggs, but you will never find the chicks at 2 weeks. Have you realized that? Because whenever they fall sick, they become carriers. So it's very important for you to have this discussion with the farmer and tell them the problem you are having is being brought about by that rooster you are protecting. Because they are carriers and they are shedding off all these sicknesses in the environment. So any new bird you are bringing is actually getting contagious and getting sick, and that is why the birds are dying, but the rooster still remains. So carrier state is something that you have to address. Biosecurity and carrier state of disease. Look at the diseases that can actually have carrier state so that you can talk to your farmers and tell them that anytime your birds are sick, we have to ensure that we wipe the whole flock out, whereby once we sell all of them, we actually go in a downtime, we do thorough disinfection, we do thorough disinfection again with a very heavy disinfectant to ensure the disease is actually wiped out of the farm, and then you can restart reflocking all the stock from afresh, rather than saying these are good, now I'm going to add on top of this. That is the biggest challenge we are having with farmers, whereby they are restocking new stock, but they still have a hold of the old stock. And the carrier state is what is killing these birds, because there's continuous disease spread from those birds and they are shedding. Fowlpox, I'm sure you know about this disease. It affects majorly the layers, the elderly birds, and you can see those pock lesions on their wattle. The problem with fowlpox, it does not really kill most of the birds in terms of mortality is very low, but morbidity is very high, and morbidity sometimes is worse than mortality. Can we agree on that? Morbidity is worse than mortality at some times. Who can explain that point? At what point do you tell the farmer, kuku zimekufa lakini shukuru Mungu? What worse would have happened? What worse would have happened rather than the birds dying? You know, every time I bring a flock home, I want to say, if it is possible, we have an agreement that I can lose. If it is the 5%, I must lose. If I would lose the 5% on day 1, I would be the happiest. On day 2, I would still be happy. On day 3, not so bad. The challenge comes in when the farmer starts having sick birds, all of them, and the morbidity is so high, there is no production, no eggs they can see, and the birds stay in the farm consuming feeds, consuming drugs, and nothing is happening. That's when you make a lot of losses. And in this business, you have to be able to discuss with the farmer and tell them, at least you did not do what? You only lost the money for buying the chick, as compared to losses of feeds, losses of drugs, losses of so many other things. Sawa sawa. Egg drop syndrome. That is what I was heading to. You have layers, they are at their peak, they are 50 weeks, and they are laying 20%. But you are feeding them, but you are giving them supplementations, but the birds are sick. They are in a subclinical state. They are not showing, but they are not productive. That is way worse than not having the birds, because you are no longer buying the feeds. So egg drop syndrome is one of those diseases whereby you want to ensure you do not have it in the farm. So talk to your farmers, those who have layers, and ensure that they vaccinate against this disease, because the subclinical state is actually a very bad thing for them. The losses they are going to incur might even go for a whole month without actually realizing what is happening. And by the time you are trying to treat these birds, because there is no cure, they will never get to their peak production, and they will never stay in their peak production. So ensure that this is addressed through biosecurity and also vaccination. Colibacillosis, we talked about this, Escherichia coli. This is an infection, a bacterial infection. And the only way to prevent bacterial infection majorly is through biosecurity and gut health. Gut health. This bacteria, E. coli, the same bacteria, Salmonella, the bacteria, Pasturella, they are opportunistic bacteria. They are already sitting in the gut, and they are just waiting for the immunity to go down. They are just waiting for that ulceration I was talking about, so that they can actually cause disease. So they are already available in the environment. What you can do is suppress them to a level whereby they can't cause disease. You suppress them by continuous disinfection and by ensuring that you do not have fomites coming into the farm, or you do not have any new entrants coming into the farm without disinfection. The other way I've told you is through gut health. ensure your bird's gut health is at its best. Beneficial microflora should be the colonizers of the gut of your birds. So ensure that you give them probiotics each and every time. Help them with some enzymes to assist in the digestion. FCR is good. If the nutrition is good, the birds will have very good immunity, and you might actually not end up with any bacterial infections. Once the birds are sick, there is very little you can do apart from ensuring that you do not spread the disease, and then after that now you have to treat the birds with probably an antibiotic. And I talked about force meat. We do have another one called avidoxin. Those are some of the antibiotics you can use in chicken. Mycoplasma, mycoplasmosis, Mycoplasma gallisepticum, Mycoplasma synoviae. This is majorly CRD, chronic respiratory disease. It's a combination of so many infections. The swollen joints, the birds cannot move, they are discolored, sinusitis, conjunctivitis. There's inflammation of the eyes, and the bird has so many infections. That is why it is called CRD. CRD, once it happens again, is an issue of the environment. Ask yourself, where are we getting all these bacteria from? Where are they residing in? Mycoplasma most of the times is coming with the day-old chicks. So what is the source of your hatchery? And how certified is your hatchery? And are they professionals? And that is why we were talking about the source of your chicks yesterday. Quality chicks from quality hatcheries. But once you have mycoplasma in your place, you can be sure it's going to be there for a very long time. It's not very easy to get rid of it. Thorough disinfection, clear all the birds out, stay without birds for a while, keep continuously disinfecting the environment and ensuring that the banda has been washed, it has been disinfected, the environment is cleared, it's been disinfected. Then later in life, you can actually bring back another new stock. Fall cholera, I know you know about this. Pastorella multicida is actually an opportunistic bacteria residing in the gut of your birds, just waiting for the right opportunity. When this happens, you have swollen wattle. Right on the wattle, on top, you can see that it is very swollen. There is diarrhea. The birds are not feeding. Mucoid discharge from the mouth is just dripping. It's just dripping to the ground. Fall cholera will affect majorly the mature birds. You may not see this in the broiler, but anybody who has improved kienyeji, and also the layer birds might actually be able to see this disease. Any infection, as I've said, once it happens, you need to treat it with an antibiotic. Pulloram disease, again, this is another disease which is an opportunistic infection. They go hand in hand. Mycoplasma, fall cholera, and pulloram most of the time. Fall cholera and pulloram will always follow coccidiosis. So whenever you are a farmer, you have realized your farmer has coccidiosis, ensure you treat for the protozoa with an antiprotozoa and treat for the infections with an antibiotic. It's very important. Otherwise, you will keep being at it every day, in out. It's just a matter of incubation. So you would rather treat all of them because they are inside the bird and they are going to cause septicemia and they are affecting the bird. So pulloram is always there. There's a lot of pest on the vent, droopy wings, huddling together, dehydration, dust, and ruffled feathers. Infectious coryza, Haemophilus paragallinarum. Infectious coryza has become a very important economic disease right now. I think most farms have Haemophilus paragallinarum, and it is affecting production. Again, there's a vaccine for it. You can reach out for the vaccine, especially if you are doing layer birds. Ensure the birds are vaccinated. If you are doing improved birds, improved kienyeji, ensure the birds are vaccinated. But all in all, after vaccination, you need to ensure the bacterial load does not rise to a level whereby it can cause a disease by continuous disinfection. Protozoa disease majorly is coccidiosis, Eimeria tenella, Eimeria necatrix, Eimeria brunetti. All these Eimeria species reside within our homesteads. Oocyst eggs are within our homesteads continuously. What they are just waiting for is the right opportunity to replicate and colonize the gut of your birds. And after that, then now you end up with the bloody diarrhea, anorexic birds, yellow foamy poop, and the birds may seem unkept, they are dirty, and they are not feeding. But the clear sign you'll be able to see is the blood in the droppings or the brownish in the droppings. That will be assured that you have coccidiosis on your farm. More times than not, disinfection will keep the protozoa load at a level whereby they can't cause disease. We do have fungal diseases. We talked about aspergillosis yesterday, the brooder pneumonia, which is very common because of lack of ventilation and also lack of proper brooding. And once you open up the chicken house and the birds are actually able to breathe, there's more air into the house, the disease just kind of disappears. But ensure that you protect and ensure this fungal does not happen in your farm by biosecurity, and also ensure you do not spread it to other farms. Parasitic infections, we have the bird mites and also the poultry lice. Again, same story, ensure that biosecurity is enhanced so that you do not bring this in from other places. How poultry diseases are spread. This is of great importance. Train this to the farmer. Ensure they understand this. There's a time there was a big problem of ECF in Central. ECF is never in Central that much. And everybody was wondering, how did ECF get into Central, Kiambu areas and the rest? Because most of their cows are zero grazed. And upon research, it was realized that there were no feeds, pastures. And almost every other farmer was buying pastures from Nakuru. And that is how the ticks were able to get into their farms. So I can tell you, biosecurity is a major issue. I keep telling practitioners, if only you went to these hatcheries and saw how they take biosecurity as a matter of seriousness. People get fired for just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. They don't care how good you are at your job. But if you're supposed to be in area A and they just see you in area B, you can go home for that. It's not about you, it's because of what you can do to the parent stock. But in our homes, it's okay for a person to go from the pigs or to move from the dairy cow area after giving them food and end up in the poultry house. And we are very much okay with it. And then the farmer is complaining, why do I have coccidiosis? Why are my birds not healthy? Yesterday I was telling you that until we change in terms of how we use our treatment and work on preventive medicine, and you can see it from the most serious farmers. There's a farmer who I talk to, and they have no idea what coccidiosis is. I have one farmer somewhere in Mitaboni who have no idea what coccidiosis is. They don't know. Those dawas we know for coccidiosis, they have never purchased once. And I'm talking about a contracted farmer who is doing 100,000 broilers at a go. But this farmer imports workers from Western. And every house has a worker, and every poultry house has a toilet, and every poultry house has a place to sleep in, and every poultry house has a place for you to cook. And when you get into that house, when the broilers come in day one, the only way you leave that house if the birds are collected at harvesting. And that is why that farmer can never employ a neighbor. So the neighbors are always like, this is not a good guy. Why can't he employ my son? Why can't he employ my daughter? It's because during that 4-week period, 5-week period, you might want to go home. So for him to ensure biosecurity, he'll always pick somebody from very far away. Put them in that house, you stay with your birds. If you have been allocated 10,000 birds, you stay with them from day 1 to day 42 without leaving. He, even himself, views the birds from the videos. When you go there, he just tells you, Daktari, look at the birds, look at what is happening, what should you recommend we do? But we're not going to get into the banda. Actually, I've gone to those bandas, I think, once, and they tell you can get in when there are no birds, when it's downtime. So ukienda huko, they are all empty. So there's nothing to see. That's how important biosecurity is. But this farmer understands what they are doing. And the feeds are there, and the biosecurity, they buy disinfectants in 20-liter containers. Not the 100 ml we are buying in. They will tell you, I have 20 liters almost. If it's possible to bring me a drum of disinfectants, do that. That is helpful. But when you go to that farm and you start talking about antibiotics, you are off topic. Simuliambiwa kuna mkulima unaenda kwake anakuambia you are not helping me. That is one of those farmers. Any moment you go there and you are going to talk about antibiotics, you are not helping that farmer. Talk about supplementations, talk about gut health, talk about the new disinfectant in town. Then you might be making some sense to the farmer. And there might be a deal coming. But when you get there and you start saying, you know, we have force meat, they are wondering, where would you like me to take that? How does that help me? Biosecurity is very important. How poultry diseases spread? Vehicles. Go to the hatcheries, they wash your car. Sometimes I tell practitioners whenever I want to visit some of these hatcheries and I've not washed my car, it's the best opportunity. Ensure you just get an appointment. When you get there, your car is washed 3 times. There's a very exterior gate at the end. They'll wash it. You move in, they wash it. If you're supposed to change, to move from one unit to the next, you have to bathe. You have to change clothes. You can change clothes 3 times. But in our farms, we can't tell the farmer to just have one dust coat in the farm. Gumboots at the farm level. These are the challenges we are having with our farmers, and that is why we are in continuous fight about products, diseases. We can never engage in how to grow the farmer because we are talking about coccidiosis every day. Feed trucks, bird transport, carcasses, manure, litter, feathers and debris, poultry equipments. How many of us ensure our farmers wash their feeders and drinkers? You go there and they are so dirty, they are filled up with debris, and you are wondering, are we sure there is no oocyst eggs in this? Are we sure if we were to take an isolate and go and check in the lab, we would not find so much E. coli in this? Can we ensure that we wash the feeders, we wash the drinkers? People, gumboots, clothing, the handling. Again, manure, tractors, and trucks. We have already gone through this. The border guys who bring the wood shavings. It's a funny story because the farmer will do everything you have said. They'll wash the house, they will disinfect the house, but then they will tell the border guy who's bringing the wood shavings, usiweke hapo nje, pitisha hadi kwa nyumba ndani. Does that happen? So what has happened? Where are the wood shavings coming from? Town. They are filled with germs, they are filled with oocyst eggs. So you disinfected the house, you have prepared the banda, everything is well done. But ukikuja na pikipiki ya wood shavings, ndio utaki mwagike hapo, just proceed into the house. We need to ask ourselves, what have we really done on that? Ensure that the farmer understands exactly what to do and how to do it. Cost of disease. Anytime there's a disease in the farm, can we narrow down? Can we analyze the cost of a disease? Financial losses to farmers due to one, mortalities. We know mortality is a big challenge. You lose birds, that means you lose revenue. You also lose your money in terms of the initial cost. Low production performance, eggs. We have seen, and yesterday we were able to calculate and see that unless you are at 90%, 85%, 90%, 95%, are you in business? How many of us as practitioners can say that we have farmers who are doing 95% egg production? Not just attaining peak, but maintaining peak for at least some 50 weeks. From week 35 to week 40, they maintain that for the longest time, then it starts dropping, and then you can remove the birds. We have to ensure that our farmers are profitable so that they can come back and keep purchasing the feeds and keep promoting our business. Medication. Losses on medication. Losses on decontamination. The biosecurity for you to decontaminate, probably you'll have to buy a stronger, heavy-duty disinfectant than you had so that it can clear all the debris and clear any other thing that was there. Human infection and death. Zoonosis is a major issue. You know, salmonella is actually zoonotic. Avian influenza is zoonotic, among other diseases. So the cost of disease is very important, and this helps you to actually help the farmer to ensure that they are getting value for their money and value for their investment. Biosecurity implementation measures. This is just a pictorial way of telling you what we need to do. Ensure that you have a room, a change room for attire and the attire station, probably very close to the gate. Ensure that you have a way of disposal. Most farmers who are farming don't know where to take their manure, especially the farmers who are farming in towns. And this is a major threat to their industry and to their neighbors. So ensure these farmers understand that when they remove their manure, they must find a place to dump it very far away from their farm, because that is the place whereby all the bacteria are residing, all the protozoa are residing, and they will find their way back into the farm. You can't remove your manure from the house here and just throw it just by the side. The ammonia, and that is actually the breeding zone for diseases. Quarantine area. Every farmer must have a small quarantine area, either within the house or outside the house, to make sure that they put the birds that are actually sick. Ensure you have a foot bath with a disinfectant, which is actually changed every 14 days. Waste disposal means vehicles, before they get in, they must go through a foot dip, or they must actually be washed to ensure that they do not bring fomites and they do not bring diseases. Cleaning and sanitation area, ensure you do have cleaning area, probably just outside the poultry house, to ensure that you can wash your hands with a disinfectant before you move to the next house. All in, all out system. This is very important. It's one of the ways to ensure biosecurity. If your farmer has disease, make sure they do not bring in new birds. Ensure that they clear that flock. They don't have to clear it immediately. Maybe the birds are not mature enough, but ensure first they clear that flock out, they disinfect before they bring any new batch. That is what is called all in, all out system. So that you can stop having those batches. I know we have the batches because of probably the brokers or the mediators who come in and say, I just want to buy 50 birds from you, so you stay with the other 50. I just want to buy 40 birds, you stay with the other 30. So what the farmer says is, now that I've sold the 50, let me place an order for day-old chicks. Then the order comes even before they clear the other remaining batch. That is a recipe for disease. That is a recipe for problems. Ensure that all the birds have been cleared to the last one. They would rather slaughter the birds and put them in a freezer, wash the banda, disinfect it, and then prepare for the next batch of birds, rather than bringing new birds when the old ones, even if it is 1 or 2, that is a big challenge. Tumeelewana? Yes. Then why do outbreaks occur? We need to ask ourselves, how does this happen and why does it happen? So that actually we understand how we can help the farmer. When we are talking about an outbreak, there are 3 things that must be at sync. The first is the host of the disease. 2, the agent, the disease itself. And 3, the environment. All these 3 things must come together so that disease can thrive. The host. A host is a living organism in which agents of disease can survive. Examples of hosts are domestic livestock, such as poultry. So your birds are actually the host. The birds of your farmer are actually the host. The agent is actually the disease, may or may not develop and reproduce in a particular host, and may not cause disease in that host. What we are saying is the host, the agent, which is actually the disease-causing agent, may actually not be inside the host. For example, coccidiosis, oocyst eggs, where are they? In the environment, in the litter. And at this point, they are actually not causing a disease. If they are below the threshold to cause a disease, and they are just sitting in there, the environment is not good enough for them to thrive, to multiply, to sporulate, and cause a disease. So they are not inside the host. What about Salmonella? What about E. coli? What about Pasturella? Pasturella is an opportunistic infection. The bacteria is available inside the host gut. It's just sitting in there. But it has not replicated to levels when it can cause a disease. So it resides in there and it waits for the best opportunity. That is why I've told you the host, the agent, and the environment must all come together to cause a disease. The following host factors can determine whether a disease is caused by the agent. 1, age. The older you get, the lesser the immunity. So there's just a bacteria that will be sitting in there waiting for old age. 2, the sex. We do have diseases that actually happen on the male. They do not happen on the female. The genotype. I've told you, based on research nowadays, there's a genotype for productivity. And that means if the genotype selected also for disease resistance is there, then any bird that lacks that genotype for disease resistance will mean it is more susceptible to diseases. A good example is the kienyeji bird as compared to the broiler bird. The kienyeji bird has genotype for disease resistance. The zebu cow has this genotype. But does the broiler have this genotype? The broilers are very susceptible to disease. That is why we always tell farmers, do not do mixed farming. Do not have some broilers here, some kienyeji here, some improved kienyeji here. It is because of the genotype. Because the kienyeji might have all the coccidiosis that is available, but it's not causing disease. It's incubating, but it is not causing disease. But once the same amount of coccidia or of oocysts or of sporulates gets to the broiler bird, there is disease. Are we understanding? It's about the genotype and the selection. How was the selection done of the genes within the broiler as compared to the improved kienyeji, as compared to the kienyeji bird? The behavior of the host. The nutritional status. Nutrition and immunity are positively correlated. Anybody who is actually having a good nutrition will not get disease. Si ni ukweli even in our lives. Najua tukukubaliana ile ya kwenda kwa wale watu wagonjwa kwanza na wale wengine. But on this one we can agree. Anybody who is having a balanced diet will not be incubating a disease and will not show the signs of a disease. Health status, anytime you are not okay, you can't fight disease. And so that it gets an opportunity to manifest itself. Anytime you are not feeling well, other diseases are actually able to come in. And this is the same in poultry. That's why I was saying when your birds have coccidiosis, they end up with bacterial infection. Immunity. If the brooding was wrongly done, if the immunity build-up has not been taken care of when the birds were very little, between day 1 to day 7, you are susceptible to diseases purely based on immunity. When there's just some disturbance here and here, your birds are sick. Again, this is also very common in human beings. I hope you have been able to see this. And you will find that anybody who you can say they have low immunity, they actually can't prevent their bodies from any infection. There is no antibody production, and that means any signs of the disease will actually manifest itself in terms of clinical signs. The agent, the causative agent. I said there are 3 things that must come together to cause manifestation of a disease through the clinical signs. An agent is a biological pathogen, such as virus, parasite, fungus, or bacteria that causes disease in a susceptible host. We have agreed viruses, fungi, parasites, they are residents of our environments. That the question is, when do they manifest as disease? An agent is primarily interested in where it can live, grow, and reproduce. The following factors determine whether an agent causes disease in a particular host. One of these factors is pathogenicity. Pathogenicity. That is where the word comes from. Pathogenicity is the exposure of the agent. The colonization. Because first, I told you, day-old chicks are very sterile. They have not ingested any agents of disease, any virus, any bacteria. So first, the opportunity has to present itself. Exposure, that is the opportunity. After the exposure, then there must be colonization. That is why we agreed that if the gut health of the day-old chick is taken care of, then the beneficial microflora attaches in the gut. So that when E. coli comes and there is exposure to E. coli through the feeds, through the water, through the environment, colonization does not happen. Colonization does not happen. because there are no places to attach. But if the gut is sterile and there is nothing attaching on the receptors of the bacteria, then the pathogenic bacteria gets an opportunity to actually attach itself in the stomach, attach itself in the small intestine, and start colonizing the area. Then invasion period comes. Invasion, whereby it penetrates into the bloodstream and then causes an infection based on all those factors we have discussed. So the opportunity has to present itself. Infectivity of the agent. When we talk about infectivity, we are talking about the level at which the bacteria, the oocyst, the virus can cause a disease. For example, when we talk about worms, we always say there is the infective L3. We know about the infective L3. Have we forgotten about parasite control? Internal. At least somebody has remembered that. L3, infective L3. This is the state at which the virus, the bacteria, will cause infection in the host. Immunogenicity, induced cellular and tumoral response. This is whereby the agent is actually looking and wondering whether the host is going to respond to the invasion, to the infection. And if the host has immunity, then we are going to have cellular and tumoral response of the immunity from the host. And this will either block or will either be too weak to block the infection of the agent. And then we have the antigen stability and the survival of the agent. The agent has to survive and thrive. So it must feed from the host and ensure that it keeps multiplying and replicating, depending on, one, the environment and the status of the host, especially the immunity status or the nutritional status of the host or the health status of the host. Last but not least of the three is the environment. The environment must be perfect for the agent to thrive and for the host to actually manifest the clinical signs of the disease. The environment describes the conditions or influences that are not part of either the host or the agent, but influence their interaction. The environment is the place of interaction. The house, the gut. How is the environment? The following environment factors can influence the occurrence of disease, provided that both the susceptible host and the agent are present. Weather. When it rains, it pours. That's what they say. When it starts raining, all kinds of diseases crop. Si ni kweli? Hata si mnagoja kunyeshe. Yeah? Kukiwa na jua hamtaki wakulima because there is no disease. But when it starts raining, what happens? The weather is perfect for the agent to replicate. The oocyst eggs are just sitting there. They are quite dormant in the house of the chicken. They are just waiting for the weather to be conducive. Bacteria is sitting there and waiting for a certain period in time when it can replicate. Because it can't replicate when it is too sunny. Because the sun has ultraviolet rays, it actually kills it. So the environment must be perfect for bacteria to multiply. The environment must be perfect for oocyst eggs to sporulate. The environment must be perfect for all kinds of disease to manifest. Housing. If you have built your house for the chicken wrongly, then aspergillus flavors. You remember aspergillosis? We said this disease has no cure, but it actually resides in the poultry house. If there is no ventilation, if the house is enclosed and there is no ventilation, then it replicates. If there is no ventilation, then the birds are now susceptible. That is the best environment for fungal. That's the best environment for parasites to multiply. Geography, there are some diseases that you'll hear, they can't happen on this side, they have to happen on the polar sides. They can't happen on this side, they have to happen on the other side. Geographical factors affect the agent in manifesting as disease in the host. Air quality. Yesterday I said, if the farmer is not going into their chicken house, I'm also not going into their chicken house. Because the air quality is of great importance, both in terms of disease and affecting the host into becoming susceptible to the disease. So air quality. If you get into that poultry house and the weather is not the way you are feeling here, no, there's a problem. One, the host becomes susceptible. Two, it is the correct environment for the causative agent to multiply and cause disease. So these three things must come together: the host, the agent, and the environment. That is how the disease will happen. When does an outbreak occur? Again, when an outbreak occurs at a particular time, it is because of a change in the natural balance between the host, the agent, and the environment. Any one of the following changes could result in an outbreak: an increase in exposure to the agent, an increase in the infectivity, an enhancement of transmission, an increased host exposure, changes in susceptibility of the host to the agent, introduction to new portals of entry. I think we have already addressed all these areas. For example, the introduction through new portals of entry is whereby we are talking about the disease, probably the bacteria, the pathogenic bacteria residing within the gut of the chicken, and just waiting for an ulceration to happen. And then they get into the bloodstream and you end up with septicemia. Infectivity, we have discussed that, and that is how the disease will actually happen. In an outbreak of infectious disease, individuals in the population can be classified into the following groups. We really need to understand these groupings. Susceptible. I think all the birds are susceptible to certain diseases. And if you want to reduce the susceptibility, one, we discuss nutrition. Two, ensuring the environment is good so that the birds cannot be susceptible. But otherwise, they will be susceptible if all the factors are not put within their optimum. Incubating. The host could be incubating. You can't see the disease, but the disease is there. That is why anytime a farmer tells you, one of my birds is sick, and you are suspecting coccidiosis, do you treat that one bird or all the birds? The other thing the farmer asks you is, why do you want me to treat 10,000 birds for coccidiosis and only 5 are sick? Because they are doing what? One, they are susceptible. Others are what? They are in the incubating period. Some are incubating and they are infective. They are incubating, they have not showed the signs, but they can actually spread the disease to the next bird. That is why every time you find a bird that is looking sickish, you need to take it very fast and put it away from the rest, to ensure that if it is infective, if it is in the incubating stage and is still infective, it does not transmit whatever it is suffering from. So ensure your farmers understand why you have a quarantine area. It is to ensure the incubating infective stages cannot be transmitted to the rest of the birds. Diseased and infective. Here is whereby the birds are showing the clinical signs. They are very sick. You can see that they are having bloody diarrhea if it is coccidiosis, and they are also shedding the disease into the environment. Diseased and infective. Subclinical and infective. This is a dangerous state, whereby the host is not really showing the signs. The signs you are only seeing are low production. There is just low production. If it is in broiler birds, they are not attaining the weight you want them to attain, but they are not showing any other clinical signs. If it is a dairy cow, it is not giving you milk. You know this is a high producer of 20 liters. It is giving you 10 liters, and there is nothing else you are seeing in terms of disease. But it is infective. It can shed the disease, it can spread the disease. Convalescent and infective. This is whereby you have treated the birds with coccidiosis, anticoccidia, or with force meat if they were a bacterial infection, but they can still shed the disease, although they are recovering period. This is the recovery period. Then we have the convalescent, whereby it is no longer shedding the disease, it is healing period, and they are starting to get back to their production level. Then the worst case scenario in the host is it's dead. It was not able to manage the disease, and it has actually succumbed to the disease. Last but not least, down there we have immune. Immune is the ones that are not getting the disease, but sometimes they might be carriers and they might be shedding the disease, like in the cases of Gumboro, where I've told you, those cockerels, those roosters who always stay the farm, they are immune, but they might be shedding the disease, so they are infective. SOPs in handling disease outbreak: 1, reducing contact between infectious and susceptible birds. We have discussed this in length. Separate, quarantine any sick or sickish bird away from the rest, so that there is no spread of the disease. Reducing the number of susceptible birds, as described for an outbreak to occur, there must be sufficient susceptible birds in a population to allow for continued transmission of the disease and the agent from infected to susceptible birds. So vaccination is one of the ways of reducing susceptible birds. This is the host. So because Newcastle can come in any time, we vaccinate them. So we are reducing the birds that are susceptible to Newcastle. Decreasing the amount of infectious agents. This is where we are in terms of biosecurity. Decreasing the amount of infectious agents reduces the level of the agent the host is exposed to and prevents further exposure. This can be done through use of disinfectants. Principles of control measures and biosecurity. I think this is more of a recap to everybody so that we all understand what we have been talking about. The first one is limit non-essential visitors to the farm. Keep a record of all the visitors and their previous farm visit. This is the vet who passes through farms unscheduled, who was actually in the area. Ulikuwa umeenda Mtwapa, umeona shamba moja lakini unaona ni kama umechoma mafuta. So you call the next farmer and you're asking them, uko nyumbani nipitie. We need to stop that behavior because you could actually be the agent who is spreading the disease, or rather the vector that is spreading the agent. And that is why we are saying ensure all the farmers limit non-essential visitors from the farm. Visit the youngest flock at the beginning of the day and working age to the oldest flock as the last in the day. Because we have all agreed young stock is naive and susceptible more than the old, or rather older stock. Older stock could have already have complete immunity to certain diseases and infections. So start with the naive, start with the new birds. This is especially for the broiler farmers who have 4 houses, then move on to the older birds. But when they are sick, you start from the healthy birds, you move on to the sick birds. Provide wheel dips and wheel spraying facilities with a disinfectant. In this case, I'm talking about Biosec and Finosol. Biosec is our light duty disinfectant, which you can use in the poultry houses. You can fumigate when the birds are inside. There will be no harm to the bird, and you can actually use it to wash what we call the feeders and the drinkers and ensure that the birds do not get infected. Finosol is our heavy-duty disinfectant, especially in cases you are suspecting disease. You can use this to clear. It's quite an heavy-duty disinfectant in that do not use it when the birds are inside. Do not use it when you've brought in the birds because it's actually a very strong disinfectant. So we are recommending you use it to wash the house when there are no birds and to put it in the foot bath and also have it at the wheel dip, maybe at the entry of the house. Farms should be fenced off. I think we have discussed this. Ideal entry and exit gates. Absolutely no other farms close to your farm. All surrounding areas of the poultry house should be free from vegetation, debris, and unused equipment that could harbor vermins. So ensure that the boma is fenced off. Ensure that any debris around the house, the vegetation, any place that the agent could actually replicate in or be harbored in is actually cleared. That will be very helpful. A dedicated changing facility for protective clothing and footwear should be sited at the farm close to the entrance. It beats logic for you to have a poultry house and a gate And when people get in through the gate, they go all the way into the chicken house to change. Have you realized that is what most farmers are doing? We have not discussed with the farmers how to arrange these things. So the farmer allows you to get through the gate. Actually, hata gari aingi kwa footbath. But when you get just inside the poultry house, that is when they tell you, now let's change. You have already brought in the vectors, you have already brought in the disease as a vector. Provide well-maintained footbaths at the entrance of the poultry houses. Footbaths should be covered. I think that is what we need to tell our farmers. The awareness on footbath is going on well. Most farmers have embraced footbath, but they are not maintaining the footbaths. The footbaths are open. Unajua is an afterthought. Nyumba ilijengwa, mabati imefika hapa, sasa footbath imeenda hivi. What happens when it rains? What happens when it rains? So is the footbath still functional? So the footbath has to be well covered to ensure that anytime there is rains, water does not get into it, and to ensure that it's actually functional every 14 days, depending on the disinfectant you are using. If you use Finosol, if you use Biosec, you can change it after 14 days. So in a month, that is twice. So if you are doing broilers, you are changing it, what? 2 times, and you are good to go. So that is a good disinfectant because it stays for a longer period of time. Depletion of birds should be complete before arrival of new birds. I don't think I can overemphasize on this. You guys are dealing with the poultry, the broiler farmers. Can you talk to them about this? There is no need to order new birds when the older birds are still there. It is going to be chaotic. The disease is going to happen, and they are going to be coming to your place to keep pushing for more medication. Sawa sawa. There's a scenario that is very common among farmers, whereby a farmer who has been doing poultry keeping for maybe a year or 6 months advises their neighbor to do poultry. And the neighbor brings in a lot of 500 birds. They also have a lot of 500 broilers. But the new neighbor, the naive one who would not know how to keep the birds, actually ends up with healthier birds than the experienced neighbor who introduced that neighbor to the poultry. Have you been able to see this happen? Have you seen this? Whereby a new farmer is thriving as compared to the other farmers. Wangapi wameona hiyo? Leo sijasema muinue mikono na karibu nimalizie. Hebu tuinue mikono wenye wameona hiyo. Hata kama hujaona inua tu. Utaambiwa na mwenzako mlikuwa mnaona nini. Yes, you will find that the new farmer who has never done poultry will always thrive more than the experienced farmer who is not doing biosecurity. Who knows why, and who can tell me why that happens each and every time? Actually, they end up not being friends, especially kwa wamama. They don't end up being friends because we brought 500 birds, mine are dying, yours are not dying. I introduced you to this. It's as if you knew something I don't know. Has this happened? Yeah? It has happened. Who knows why this happens? Exactly. This is a naive land. This is a virgin land. There are no residence bacteria. There are no residence sporulite. There are no residence fungus. That is why the birds are thriving. Because the environment is so good. As compared to whereby you have already taken out 10 flocks. The 10 flocks have always been leaving what? Residues of disease in that farm. So unless you do vigorous biosecurity and disinfection, you will always find the new farmer thriving. They always thrive in the first 2 batches. And then the third batch, when they come to you, you start blaming the hatchery, as usual. Instead of explaining the concept. Si tuna blame the hatchery. Wameharibu sasa. Hapana. It is because now the house, the area has started now getting used to the agents that cause disease to poultry. And that is why now this farmer, you have to sit them down and tell them, we have to do vigorous disinfection. We have to start from the top. We have to ensure that we actually spray from the roof. We do the walls and the floor. Somebody asked me, how do you spray the roof? How do you disinfect the roof? And I asked them, how did you put up the roof? Because they want to show it is not possible. So I want to know, how did you put up the roof? Are you getting my point? So the farmer just wants to disinfect the floor. They have to start from the roof. They have to go to the walls. Then lastly, the floor. In that order, not in reverse again. This is very important. Then where do you start disinfecting the poultry house? From the farthest end towards the door. So that as you keep doing the roof, you do the walls. When you start doing the floor, you start from the farthest end and you keep going towards the door so that when you get to the door, you actually lock it for the disinfectant to work. You don't get to the door and start then going back again all the way to the other side. You need to get to the door and lock it. And that is how the disinfectant now starts working. Most disinfectants will actually show you a good signs in 5 minutes if it is actually a bacteria, if it is a virus in 30 minutes. But for the best results, you have to leave that house for 7 to 14 days so that the bacteria can the disinfectant can actually work on the bacteria, on the virus, on the fungus, and on the protozoa. It is very important. If a farmer must do broiler farming, ask them to build more houses. More houses is the best solution. Sawa sawa. Msikubaliane na mkulima ukue ni kama wewe ni inaitwa complacency ama ikue ni nini? Whereby unaona amekusukuma sana alafu unamwambia ama tu tukispray ni kama hii disinfectant hawa ni mzuri kidogo, ni stronger. So hii itachukua siku 3 alafu ulete vifaranga. No, those are lies. It requires some time. Disinfectants require time to work and you need to give them some time. Ask the farmer to build another house. Are we together up to that point? There's a farmer who called me somewhere. It was in Busia and we were going to do an activity with the county guys and they said we can pass through another farmer's poultry house and see what is happening. This farmer had a whooping 5,000 birds and they are really thriving. So I had visited them like a year before and I think this farmer business was booming. He's actually a politician and they decided to expand. Everything was perfect. The fence was perfect. The footbath was perfect. The products they were using were good, and the birds were doing well. But when I revisited the place, they said, let's go and see that farmer, how they are doing. When we got there, as I said, business was booming. So the farmer decided, instead of building another poultry house, they are going to conjoin, because now he had one house on this side and another house on this side. So they decided to conjoin with a flat roof hapa katikati. And I found it in the final stages. They had really spent a good amount of money. And I was looking at it and I was saying, what is happening here? So you can imagine, they were going to have a house that was almost, was it 40 meters width? The entire floor. So whatever was in the middle here, now they decided to join with a flat roof. So the house can start from that end all the way to that end because there was no more space. And this farmer was willing to bring in more 10,000 birds. What would you advise that farmer? And they have already spent so much money. It was even dark in the house during the day because of that combining of the house. But for some reason, I think people were coming there looking at the guy and nobody wanted to be on the bad side of him and they would say, sio mbaya, tutajaribu kuongeza kadirisha hapa. And I was like, I can't be part of this. This is not happening. You will lose your birds. Yes, you have lost in terms of investment, but we are going to lose so many birds in the end. And then the farmer will come back to you because you told them a clean bill of health, because you are afraid to tell them the truth based on what you are seeing. So let us always inform the farmer and tell them this will work. This will not work. You can carry on, but it will not work if you ask me. Tumelewana? Because there are no corners in science. It's very straightforward. It's a rectangular house. The wind has to be shorter than the length. The wind has to be this level. The ventilation has to be this way. The gable roof has to be this way for the optimum production. You compromise that to a certain level, it is acceptable. You compromise that any further, and you are not going to get production. It is a straightforward thing. There are no compromising areas around it. That's the good thing about science. Anyway, depletion of all the birds. Clean footwear before using the foot bath to remove organic material, which could inactivate the disinfectant. But the disinfectant we have there, you don't have to worry about that. It actually works through all the organic material. The choice of disinfectant for the foot bath needs to be one that has a broad spectrum of activity and be fast acting because of limited contact time. Biosec and Finosol will sort you out on that. Foot baths should be covered. We have discussed this. Have a vermin control. Rodents spread a lot of diseases in poultry houses. Rats are dangerous. Rats actually they are actually vectors of diseases. Pasteurella is spread by rats. Leptospirosis is spread by rats. Avian influenza sometimes. So many other diseases are spread by rats. We need to be careful and we need to advise the farmer accordingly. You need to understand the physiology of a rat. Unaelewa rats? They mature after how many days? Ama how many weeks? Ama how many months? A rat matures after how many months? Yes? 2 months. 2? A rat gives birth to a litter of how many rats? Yes? A rat gives birth to a litter of how many rats? Umesema ngapi? 4. Mwingine? 6. 12. Anywhere from 8 to 12. And tumesema ina mature after how many months? So let's work together. I have 2 rats, male and female. They met. Their pregnancy is 1 month. So after 1 month, they give birth to 12 rats. After 1 month, again, it gives birth to 12 rats. Then after 2 months, the 12 are now mature to get pregnant. So after another 1 month, they give birth to, now they are 13. Each 12. But remember, the mother had given birth after the first other 1 month. So by the 4th month, we now have 12 plus the mother giving birth. Divide by 2, so that is a 50-50 chance, male and females. A colony of a rat has how many rats? A colony. How do they walk? How do they move around? Yes? How do they move around? A family of 25. How do they move around? It's always a colony of at least 8 to 12. When they are together, that's a colony. That's a family. Until they give birth, then you form another colony. So when a farmer tells you I've seen 1 rat, it's a representative. Ni kama wabunge. Ni kama uende bungeni alafu useme Kenya iko na watu 262. Si kila moja ni constituency. So anytime a farmer sees a rat from today, I want you to know ameona nini? A representative. So if they see 2 rats, they are not from the same colony. I can guarantee you that. Because each constituency imetuma mtu wao mmoja kutafuta chakula. Are we understanding the concept? So if they see 2 rats, they are not together. Everybody has their own. So when they tell you I saw 4 rats, and it keeps growing and it keeps growing, you have to understand this so that you can help the farmer clear the rats. The other thing is rats are very cautious about food. They don't just eat anything. Neither do they eat new things. They are very cautious. That's why they always go to where they found food the other time. And anytime they come across a new thing, they will ask again the scout to test. Sini amewapeleka hapo. One way or the other, they will actually have 1 rat just test the new food. The rest will go and eat their normal food. Because they know they have enemies. Sisi tunaamka kuomba saa 9 kwa sababu ya maadui zetu. Sasa na wao wana make sure ni mmoja wana sacrifice. So they will always ask one, ebu jaribu hiyo. They do not just test any new food. So when you give them some poison, which kills instantly, and you are very happy in the morning to see 1 rat, how many did not eat that poison? Yes? And ask around. We have used the mtegos. We always had them. When you used to put that kanyama there, you were asked to sacrifice and you didn't want to sacrifice. And they put it there. What happened the next day? It caught a rat. Then again, you put again. Did it get a rat the next time? Did you ask yourself why? But at home you are very happy to lishika panya. So lishika moja in a colony of 12. The 11 won't come back there. So when you want to control rodents, you must know what you are doing. You must find a bait that does not kill rats. And you want to kill a rat. And this is where the issue comes in. Because you have to ensure that what you give them does not kill them immediately. So that's the first one, because they are very phobic of new food. The first one tastes and is like, this is good food. The rest refuse to eat, they go away. But tomorrow when they see the scout still eating the same food because it's still on the same path, then 2 or 3 decide, I'm also going to test this new thing. Then by the 3rd day, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 6. But you are sure by the 4th day, they have all tested the new food. So when you are getting a poison for rat control, rodent control, ensure you get something that has delayed killing of the rats. So that by the time the first rat is dying, they have all consumed a little bit of the poison. And that is where Rodrid comes in, right at the bottom there. It's a bromodiolone 0.005%. It is actually set aside to ensure that there's no bait shyness and the rats can actually feed on it for the longest time. And by the time the rats start dying, all of them have eaten and you can guarantee total control of the rats. Kwa hivyo wakulima wakurudi kwako wakikwambia ile dawa yako ulinipatia imeisha, lakini panya bado wanakimbia huku. Tusiwaambie hiyo kampuni iliharibu dawa, iliongeza maji. Tuambie hiyo ndio inafanya kazi. Because from the 5th day is when they start dying. We want them to all consume in the first 4 days. Are we understanding the concept? It does not kill instantly. Because if it kills instantly, you only get 1 or 2 out of a colony. We want to get all of them at once. And as long as it is tested, it is going to die through loss of blood internally, through dehydration, and the rat will not even smell. So why are you worried about it? Just give it some 5 to 10 days. All the rats will actually be dead. Tumeanza kuelewana? Mkulima akikwambia niliweka ile dawa ulinipatia ya panya, sumu ya panya, wamekula imeisha, they need to buy more. Ni yeye ako na panya mingi. Tumeelewana hizo ni colonies tofauti. They need to keep putting the bait in the baiter until it is not consumed. That's when they stop putting the bait. We did a practical somewhere, I think it was in Tanzania, it was even in the Shamba Shape Up, and we realized that from one farm that had a lot of poultry birds, we could carry rats on wheelbarrows more than 10 times, filled up. Forget even the nuisance. Do you know how much one rat consumes in terms of feeds? Because they do love the feeds. When they start eating your feeds in the house, or even in your shops, one rat consumes 10% of its body weight. That's around, body weight of a rat is around 25 to 30 grams. Let's work with 25. 10% of that is 2.5 grams. Na ujipate uko na panya 100. So 2.5 times 100. 2.5 times 100. So nimunifanyie hiyo hesabu. 250. Yes? 2.5 times 100. 250. Msisahau 250 ni kilo. Chakula ngapi? Quarter. Tumeelewana? A quarter of a kilo. So you are losing a quarter of a kilo per day. Can you multiply 250 by 30? Yes? 75. Sipati vizuri. 250 times 30. 7,500. 7.5 kgs. Are we getting the concept? Now keep improving that number based on the number of rats and how long it takes you to actually start controlling the rats. You can lose your entire profit, even you, the professional, by just having rats in your stores. So control rats and control them right. And Rodrid will do that. It is a block. Take it, crush it just to increase its palatability and put it at different areas because it's a block, so that the rats can actually bite the smaller blocks very easily. So crush it and put it across and let the rats feed on it. Keep putting the bait areas more rod-rid until the time that they are no longer feeding on it. And you'll actually be able to see that you will clear the rats, you will clear diseases, and you will also retain some profits from the feeds that they always take home from you. Sawa. Disease control. Disease control has 3 pillars. One of them is what we have discussed, biosecurity. The second pillar of disease control is management. Management involves housing, management involves feeding, management involves the normal runnings day by day of the farm. Disease control involves the third pillar, which is actually vaccination. So vaccinate your birds, and I guarantee you that you will have actually a smooth sailing in terms of disease control. Those 3 things, if well tackled, the farmer will get their profits. When we come to the chemical intervention we were talking about, because we said there are physical barriers and chemical barriers, at Atlantis we do have one chemical barrier which we have discussed before called phenosol. Phenosol is an heavy-duty disinfectant. It contains 38% neutral tar acids. Directions for use. Again, I have said these are very strong disinfectant. So I want you to advise the farmer accordingly. It is very strong. It is supposed to be used in times of disease and also washing off the poultry house, especially when you are bringing new stock. So kindly always add water to the disinfectant and not the disinfectant into the water when mixing. Sawa. Add a little water at a time with continued stirring until a dirty white tense emulsion results. 1 liter makes 600. 1 liter of the disinfectant can be mixed with 600 liters for home use. If you want to narrow it down, maybe you are using less, you can always calculate that. Then on the farm for disinfecting kennels, cow sheds, stables, and also the sites, mix 1 to 600. During times of disease, you can reduce the mixing from 1 to 600 to 1 to 300 for sterilization of services and material. During times of notifiable diseases, I know vets are always asking which is the strongest disinfectant I can use. Maybe we are having huku kuna FMD kweli. In the other side, FMD is very common. When there is FMD, everybody is asking, what can I use to ensure that there is no cross-contamination? What can I use to ensure containment of this disease? It does not move to the next farm. Phenosol can be recommended for that. Anytime there's an outbreak, any notifiable disease, any other serious cases, you can always go for phenosol. Again, it's also very good to use, especially in public schools, when they want to disinfect their toilets or institutions and ensure that there's no smell, because there are so many vectors in there and you want to actually use it. So phenosol does a very good job with that also. That is how phenosol looks. It starts from 250, 500, 250, 500, 1 liter, and also the 5 liter pack. The second light duty disinfectant is called Biosec. It's very friendly. This one you can use it even when the day-old chicks are there. You can use it when the birds are in the house. And it's a powerful, versatile, and very safe disinfectant against bacteria, viruses, and fungi. It contains 3 QSCs, and it also has benzalkonium, it also has glutaraldehyde, and it also has isopropanol alcohol, which I told you is a new innovation, especially after the COVID time, is when we realized that sanitizer, or rather isopropanol alcohol, really works very fast on germs and on viruses. And that is why we have added it here, so that it can work very fast. It is fast acting and ensure that the ground is bactericidal, virucidal, and fungicidal. So you can use this product. It contains all those components. We have like 4 QSCs, glutaraldehyde, and isopropanol. Glutaraldehyde really helps to unmask the cell wall of the virus and of the bacteria. Glutaraldehyde, what it does, it actually gets in and prevents protein synthesis to actually kill the germs. So the work of the QAC, why we have so many QAC is quaternary ammonium compound, is to unmask. So it removes the cell wall so that glutaraldehyde can have an easy job getting into the cell and actually killing it and ensuring that there is no bacteria, there is no germs, there is no fungi, there is no oocyst eggs, there is no protozoa, and isopropanol alcohol is the fast acting agent within Biosec. A biocide for disinfection against infectious pathogens, bacteria, virus, even mycoplasma and fungi. So the breeders, guys who are doing breeding, you can use this to ensure that mycoplasma is not there. Recommended for disinfection of hatcheries, poultry house, drinking and feeding equipment, routine disinfection of animal farms, facilities, animal housing, veterinary clinics, and hospitals. It is a broad spectrum biocidal activity, prolonged residue. I've said it works up to 2 weeks, 14 days. It is non-corrosive to your hands. It's very important these days to ensure that the product you are using is non-corrosive and does not affect the ones who is actually handling the product. Again, the mixing ratio is there. I don't think that is very important for you guys. You can always read it from the label, and that is how the product actually looks. It's quite presentable. And we have from 100 mLs, we have 1 liter, and we do have the 5 liter pack. So encourage your farmers. Encourage your farmers to buy more disinfectants. Wale wakulima nilikuambia wenye wanataka companionship, wenye wanatupitia kwa duka yako after umewauzia vifaranga, give them disinfectants to go home with. Give them supplements like Vigorex. Give them Solvita to go home with. There is no need to give them antibiotics. They don't need to store antibiotics in their houses. These are some of the products you can use. As you can see, if you do not have a foot bath, you are not limited. Tell the farmers to go to supermarkets, wanunue jik yao ya kutumia, watapewa karai. Si watapewa karai ya free. Hiyo karai aende yake hapo kwa mlango, asikwambia ati hataki kuchimba hapo kwake hizi chimbika. Innovation. Apewe hiyo karai ya bure, aende yake hapo, aeke dawa ndani, aoshe, aingie ndani ya banda la kuku. Si imewaka. It is good to understand the concept so that you don't really have to try to imitate it exactly, because that will still work. That is somebody doing fumigation. The other one is also doing fumigation. And I think we all understand the concept. That is just on road read. We have already discussed rodent control. It's a road read wax block. You can always buy it. We do have a lot of this, but ensure that you crush it. This is the story of the rats. I've been able to go through this very fast. Norway rat, roof rat, and the rest, the house mouse. As I said, it's a block, ready to use, highly palatable. I forgot to say you don't need to use any meat. You don't need to use anything else to mix it. It is ready to use. It's palatable as it is. No bait shyness because the rats die after some five days. Wax mixture limits wastage from moisture and rain. Suitable for indoor and outdoor. We do have the 10 grams and the 10 kg packs for the big institutions. So in case you need it, you can actually talk to us and we'll be able to provide that. I think I want to stop at that note. This is my last presentation. So I can ask all of you, in case, again, you need my number, but you picked it yesterday, right? Yes, so there is no need for me to repeat. But in case you need any of those products we have been able to discuss, reach out. We'll be able to support you. We do have a big range of products at Atlantis Life Science. We have not talked about the dairy. I've seen there are a few people in the dairy. We do have something called the white energy. We do have something called Ketonex. You can come back there. You can see our products are well displayed at the back. We do have something called Super Cal for when there's milk fever. The Ketonex is for when there's hypoglycemia. The white energy is for increased milk production in a cow that has calved down and is actually a rumen bypass. There's a question on besides sorry, we are done in terms of the presentation. Now I'm taking up the questions. Let's start with the people in the audience. Any questions from this side before I answer these two? Yes? You have a question?
I just wanted to know whether Atlantis has any product for soft tick control in fall.
Soft tick control in?
Fall, chicken, poultry.
Or in poultry? Or tick control in poultry? Atlantis Life Science does not have a product. We do have a product called Pyrotics, but it's for tick control in large animals and in dogs. But we are not recommending it for use in chicken because it's actually a combination, 55% EC. It contains synthetic pyrethroid and a chlorpyrifos. The chlorpyrifos is what we don't want in our chicken. So find a synthetic pyrethroid product. I think that will be helpful to you. There are some dusts for it. But the products that we do have, we do not have one for control of ticks in poultry.
Okay, my question is concerning I have two questions. The first one, it is concerning the rod reed. Actually, you have said when it is consumed by a rat, there is no smell will you experience. But in the practical exam, the practical part of it, I bought the rod reed. I have it even up to now at my shop. Actually, I did not put them for the rats, but the rats came for them, and they consumed them. So I personally didn't know that the rat died because of what caused their death. So what promoted me to know that there is a case of a dead rat is just the smell. So I don't know what is the amount of smell that you can measure to sell this one.
Thank you. I don't think I need to advertise rod reed anymore. The rats are dying and they came for the block. That is the positive end of that. On the other side, I actually the mode of action is that it kills the rat by continuous bleeding internally and it causes dehydration. So the rat should not be smelling unless the rat came into contact with water or something else after, so that it enhances rotting. But anything that is dehydrated, does it smell? But the moment it comes in contact with water, then it might smell at that juncture. So maybe it came into contact with some water and that is what caused the smelling. But thank you for guaranteeing all these professionals that rod reed is working so that they can have it. But on the smell part, I can tell you something happened and there was some water that they came into contact with. That could be the only explanation unless there's something else I'm not getting.
Then I also urge you to try to make some pellets of it because most of the customers, they have been using the pellets form like, you know, there was a product that they used to called Baraki from your neighbors, your competitor. But currently it's not in the market. So actually, they're looking for it, and the product was in form of pellets. So they are asking for baraki, but with us, you know, we can sell anything that is closely related to that. So they find it is in form of that block. So they are not comfortable with it. So I think you make some changes on that.
Thank you for that. I think that's why I've said that you actually need to crush the block so that you increase the palatability. It's already palatable, but when you crush it, then the rats can eat it very easily. But thank you for the suggestion. It's about preference and choice. And preference and choice is a driver of any entrepreneurship. So we are working on that, and probably we can get back with a pellet. But let us keep using what is available for now, because registration takes some time, but it's something we are working on. And it's purely because of preference and choice. Not that the product that we have is not working. Cindy? Okay, thank you.
My question is, I saw umeandika pale the dilution of your phenosol, that you add water, You add water to the disinfectant. Why not the vice versa? What will happen?
Thank you for that question. As I've said, phenosol is an heavy-duty disinfectant. Heavy-duty means concentration is very high, so it might be corrosive. It it is quite corrosive actually. That's why we are advising, instead of, because the normal biosec, you can just take water and mix, probably you can even play around with it, it's very safe, it's a light duty. But heavy duty disinfectants, because of their corrosiveness, because of the high concentration, we do not want it splitting back to you. That's why we are saying add water into it, and unlike the other way. Otherwise that might lead to it getting to your hands, and we don't want that to happen. Tumeelewana diapo? It's just a cautionary measure, so that it does not split and get back to you. So that's why we are saying pour it and keep stirring it until you get the correct mixture. Anybody else? I think we have maybe one or two more and we close. We are around, we can always share more on that.
Okay, kitu cha kwanza ni kuhusu phenazole. I've had some few products or few things in a shop zina pasuka, there's leakage. So I think you should work on your containers. Secondly, it's about the road reed. Okay, there are some other road hizo dawa za panya. If a rat takes water, it survives. What about your product?
On road reed, in terms of if it takes water, what might happen, as he said, is more of the smell. But in terms of it dying, it's guaranteed. One time feeding, the rat must die because the water does not interfere with the mode of action. It's a bromodiolone, 0.005%, so it's guaranteed that it will actually affect the vitamin K and there will be no clotting and it will bleed to death, whether it takes water or not. The only issue is whether it will smell. And as I said, water is what will bring probably that other issue. Then on the phenazole, thank you. I think we'll take note. You can tell us where your shop is, and we can see how to handle that issue of leakage of the phenazole, because we know it has a pungent smell, and you don't want that smell. But otherwise, it's more of just the packaging, so that we can sort and also see what could have happened or transpired before it got to you, and we can replace that. So no issues on that. Yes. Anybody else? Okay, I think we have addressed most of the questions. Somebody is asking, besides coccidiosis, which other condition would present as a bloody diarrhea? Is there any other condition that presents as bloody diarrhea in chicken? Is there any other condition? You are the practitioners. Majorly, coccidiosis is the one that presents as bloody diarrhea, unless there is tearing of the small intestine. Because the oocyst eggs, maybe I do have a chart here, I can show you what happens for it to cause that ulceration. Because when the oocyst eggs are actually in and they are embedded within the epithelial cells, they must actually burst open to release the schizoids. And the schizoids to come out now and into the lumen of the intestine, then again they embed themselves again into the epithelial cells. That is why they cause inflammation and the bleeding as the sporulation happens for the schizoid eggs to actually come out into the lumen. It's a way of them replicating. That is how they replicate. So majorly, I can say bloody diarrhea is more on coccidiosis than any other diseases, unless there's one that I'm not getting. Do you encourage the concept of eradication as a biosecurity measure, especially on its practicability in Kenya? Do you encourage the concept of eradication? Who has written this? Maybe they can shed more light onto it. What does it mean? Eradication. What are we eradicating? Ama kuna mtu anaelewa hiyo swali? Let me read it to you. Do you encourage the concept of eradication as a biosecurity measure, especially on its practicability here in Kenya? I think they mean the total disposal of a certain flock. Let's hope that's what they mean, because it's the online person. Maybe they can write something there to clarify. But in certain cases, this can be done, but I don't think it has been done here in Kenya. We know this has been done in Nigeria. Munakumbuka zile kuku za Obasanjo? Munakumbuka? Who knows about the Obasanjo chicken? Yenye zilikuwa na avian flu. What do you do with that? Total disposal. You burn them totally. That's why we were talking about disposal, because it's a zoonotic disease. So they had to totally eradicate that flock in totality, disinfect everything, and they even had to shut down that production site. So go and read about avian flu and some chicken somewhere that were in Nigeria, whereby it was actually a flock of almost 200 to 300,000 birds that got the avian flu, and they actually had to ban them so that they ensure that containment measures are done and it does not spread to any other place. So total eradication can be done only if we have those zoonotic diseases which we might not really want anywhere else. So those were the only questions, and I think up to that point I would wish to stop. I've utilized my time to the maximum. It is 1 hour 58 minutes. Maybe the facilitator can carry on from there. And thank you all. I hope you had a wonderful session.